I will just share my screen and we would flow.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Please
Sylvia.
welcome.
I can hear you,
Yes, we
Sylvia.
can hear you.
Today we'll be taking notes of verbal communication, why they may be more important than words, and the objective is how non-communication is perceived and interpreted for information, and also convey a positive response through gestures. And our facilitator will be Obanu. So, Obanu.
All right. Thank you, Sylvia. Give me a moment. Let me share my screen. Still having challenges doing that. Okay. Okay, we are live now. Okay. I confirm you can hear me and see me. Confirm you can hear me and see me. I'd like to get audio response. All right, thank you, Sylvia. Okay. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session on nonverbal communication. And my name is Obanu, and I work with the training team here at Wave. And what we'll be discussing today is the impact basically of nonverbal communication and basically how it is, I use the word louder than words, right? Because it is louder than words, right? Um, yeah, so we're talking about nonverbal communication. I know some persons might have engaged with what communication is, but we'll just have a refresher on what, nonverbal communication is actually, right? So nonverbal communication basically, when we think about it, it's more or less speaking without words or speaking without saying anything, speaking without opening your mouth to, or utter or mutter words, basically. So let's think about verbal communication, which is the opposite, which is more or less speaking with words, right? And you will see in the light of verbal communication, you would have speaking, we'll have writing, everything that has to do with words, you could always term that as verbal communication. Now, however, non-verbal communication actually is the communication that supports your verbal communication. So it's more or less the foundation or the one which is most evident in everything you say. So just think about when I say, um, I am happy with a smile, right? So what happens is I am happy with the smile. The smile actually buttresses what I am saying. And what you would believe is not what I am saying, but the expression that supports what I am saying, right? So the same thing, if I say I am happy, but have a straight face, I'm happy. So you would look at me and be wondering, where's the lie? Like, okay, I see the lie, right? So because what actually buttresses what you're saying or what people actually perceive of you is the things that you do not say, which is your nonverbal communication, right? So we're going to talk about how this impacts everything that surrounds a person, how this impacts everything that surrounds you and how people perceive you, basically. Um, so initially on my screen, you would see a couple of pictures that we would identify the expressions that we can see, right? The expressions in those pictures. So the first picture, right? You could just guess what are the expressions that you can see from the first slide, or first picture in the left on the left with number one, right? So you see someone sitting down. He's confirm you can, okay, right? At the at first interaction, you might see, oh, this person is lazy. Please confirm you can hear me, okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, good. Can you see my screen as well? I think network just tripped off. Can you see my screen as well? Yes, okay. All right, so you see the first person, and the first person seems very relaxed, and your perception might be, oh, he's very lazy, or another person's perception might be he's relaxed, right? So one thing to note when it comes to nonverbal communication is that people will have different perceptions of the same expression, and that's normal. What defines a person's perception is more or less what you would call how they think, right? And also their previous experience. So what have I engaged with in the past, and how does that influence what I see and what I think about people? So firstly, you would see one person, one expression, and most likely you'd have a different meaning. People have different meanings attached to that expression. So the second picture, you will say, oh, she's a serious-minded person, or she's very focused, right? You could have several expressions as well. So the third picture, you see, when you see the man, what you think, oh, he's old, is old. Another person might say, oh, he looks weak. Another person might say, oh, he looks Indian. Right. So every expression, everything you see has a definition, and sometimes, most times, that definition is subjective. Everybody has a definition for everybody, and that's why I always tell people not to get offended when someone actually misinterprets their expression, because they are speaking from a place. What you now need to do is just clarify, right? This second slide as well. So we see the slide number 4. You would have a definition for her expression as well, or maybe she's angry, she's enraged, or whatever. Then the fifth person as well, you would also see he also has an expression, right? He looks shocked, surprised, or is in panic mode. Or you could say, oh, he saw an accident, or he saw a movie that we're seeing a movie that stares him up to panic, right? You see the next person as well. What expression can you see? You would say, oh, she looks disinterested, or she's dissatisfied, or she doesn't want to talk, or yeah, or she's displeased, basically, right? Different definitions for different expressions. The same thing for the slide 7, right? You see the guy panicking, or he's having anxiety, maybe he's trying to send a message or something, right? Or maybe let's say it's fear, right? Your perception would be different, right? Slide 8, the lady seems to be worrying, anxiety as well. What's wrong? Slide 9, you see the kid looking like he's afraid, or he's looking has a mischievous look, right? So different expressions, different definitions of expressions, right? So if I'm to name everything based on everything I see, you would find out that for slide 1, I would say the guy looked arrogant, lazy, and confident and at rest, basically. Someone might say, oh, the lady was very focused, serious-minded, right? So these are the different definitions that people might have for the different pictures that they might have seen, right? So one thing to note is this. One thing to note is this, and you should not get offended, right? Two people can have different opinions about you. Two people can have different perspectives about you. Or different people can have different things they think about you based on what they've seen. However, what people see might just be a glimpse and might not be the holistic picture of you. So when we talk about nonverbal communication, today we're talking about how am I deliberate about what I want people to see, what I want people to perceive, and what I want people to think about me. Right. So how I want people, how am I deliberate, right? Intentional. How am I designing what people are seeing, perceiving, and thinking about me, right? Let's say we'll get into asking the question first of all. So why is nonverbal communication important? I think that's essential to define. Why is nonverbal communication important, right? And I would say it's very, very important because of the main things I've said earlier. People can misinterpret your expressions. People can misinterpret what you say. People focus more on how you say what you say rather than what you're saying, right? So there are subtle things that you do that might be part of what you say, but what people will focus on is not what you really said, but what you're doing, right? So imagine if you might look well dressed, looking very pretty, looking very beautiful, but it seems that people are disinterested, or they don't want to even hang around you, maybe because you have a particular, let me say, body odor, right? So it's an expression coming out from you, but you might still look beautiful. You might speak the best vocabularies. Your English might be peng. All of that can happen. But however, there's something that just keeps people away, right? So nonverbal communication is very essential because you want people to perceive you in the positive light. So you are trying to communicate the very essence of what you want to communicate. So I think, yeah, I think we're going to talk about it before the end of class. You're trying to communicate the very essence of what you intend to communicate. So it's important because people focus more on your nonverbal than your verbal communication. What people perceive is your nonverbal before your verbal communication. Your nonverbal is, I think research has said that verbal communication is seems to be, I think, 3% of communication, and your nonverbal is 90 something percent, right? I'm not sure of the numbers, but actually greater weight is basically on your nonverbal communication than your verbal communication. So people perceive your nonverbal communication first before they perceive your verbal communication. So you have one job to ensure that they perceive the right thing, to ensure that you do not give them any impression you don't want them to go home with, because it's often said that first impression often lasts longer. So what happens is if they take that impression home, that's what they'll think about you, and that's what they'll tell people about you. So you have one job: ensure that your nonverbal communication is accurate. Accurate. The same way you work to speak well, to write well, use the right words when you're speaking, pronounce the words appropriately. The same thing with your nonverbal communication. Must ensure that you are doing it right, right. So let's talk about components of nonverbal communication. So I like to call these components, or these are the various factors that define nonverbal communication, right? So the first one is tone of voice. So tone of voice basically speaks about how are you saying what you're saying. So are you very loud and aggressive, or are you very soft, gentle, tender, or are you what's the word? So how do you say what you say? Are you enunciating? Are you stressing certain words when you speak? Right? So how do you say what you say? So your tone of voice basically communicates something. So for example, I can say, I am happy, or I am happy, or I am happy. So basically, you're communicating something with your tone of voice, and basically with your pitch. So basically, tone of voice covers a couple of things: pitch, tone of voice, a couple of other things. I think one other one is also stress factors and intonation as well. So those are basically around speech, right? So how are you saying what you're saying? How are you saying what you're saying? So are you saying what you're saying with a very tired voice, right? I remember I was facilitating a call center training, and we're talking about how to speak over the phone, right, for the call center agents. And one particular thing that was important: how do you speak appropriately? Phone etiquette. No, I think some of us wake up in the morning and we pick up the call, and then our voices sound very relaxed. And sometimes it might just be in the afternoon, laying on our beds, and someone calls you and asks you, are you sleeping? Or did you just wake up? And you're like, no, just there. So what happens is your posture altered your tone of voice, right? And they were thinking maybe you were sleeping, or maybe something was happening. So your tone of voice is essential. Also, make sure you watch your tone of voice. It's a component of nonverbal communication. The next one is facial expression. So facial expression covers basically what people see most of the time before they even approach you. So someone is actually coming towards you to speak to you, and your facial expression defines what they would see. And I think they say a smile is very contagious. What that means is if you're smiling a lot, you have the tendency of attracting people to, to smile as well, right? Also, the facial expression defines whether you are open. It looks like an ex-convict. They can't trust you because of your facial expression. So it's essential to actually have an expression that defines what you really want to show. So if you want people to like you, if you want people to want to be your friend, to be your colleague, or want people to, I think colleague is wrong, friend basically. If you want to look friendly, you must have a facial expression that is friendly, that is open, right? Also, facial expression also communicates sometimes the things you want to say. For example, I know when our parents actually want to give us directions on what not to do in public places, and they don't want to say it out loud, and they give you that look that tells you that you should sit down and be a good boy, right? So facial expression can do a lot in communicating things. Sometimes that you could just be talking to someone that you don't want to tell someone else, maybe a third party, something to do something, and you don't want the other person to know, just give them a nod, right? Give them a nod, maybe you shake your head or something of such, right? So facial expression is actually good in communicating non-verbally. The next one is body language. So your body has a language, and body language covers postures. So your sitting posture, your standing posture, how do you walk, right? Your sitting, standing, walking, handshake, poise and comportment, um, hand gestures and the likes. All of those things make up your body language. So I think there are a couple of research by police, police, and they just say the police say there are certain postures that they look out for to check if this person is up to no good or up to, yeah, it's not a bad person, basically, right? So your body language can communicate many things. Your body can communicate many things. That's why it's called body language, right? It has a lot of things it communicates. So some persons, you find them when it's time for an interview, their hands are all sweaty, their hands are shaking, or maybe their legs are shaking as well, right? That's something they are communicating something. Some persons, you see the way they walk so confidently, their heads up high, they are communicating something, right? Or you see someone who, seems to be at a party, his arms are, crossed in front of him, and he just looks around, not saying anything, looking like the newbie. And yeah, he's communicating something, right? So your body language can communicate a lot of things, right? And like I said again, it's essential you define what you want your body to communicate. So I think one other thing I also talk about with body language is hygiene, grooming and hygiene. So you could wake up in the morning, your hair is so rough, um, you are communicating something, right? I heard of people, I've seen people who go for interviews and they are not properly dressed, they are communicating something, right? So think about other people who also, what's it called? Who also do not take care of their body generally, let's put it that way, right? In that case, you're also still communicating something. So grooming and hygiene is another component of non-verbal communication that you should also watch out for. So the way I take care of my hair, the way I take care of my body, the way I deal with my clothes, my shoe, the way I dress, what else? Yeah, the way I take care of my body generally, the way I take care of myself. Is it What's the message it is passing? That's another question to ask. What message is it passing? And I think it's something to think about. What message am I passing to the people that are around me, right? And when you begin to see that, oh, the way I dress does not seem to fit the standard or does not seem to fit the context I'm working in. Therefore, I'm communicating to people that maybe I'm not professional, or I'm communicating that, oh, I'm not competent enough. Therefore, it's essential to adjust that as well. Hygiene. So how clean are you? Do you take your bath twice in a day, or do you brush daily? Do you brush twice daily? How do you take care of your body, right? Same persons who just, all they have to do is just take off their shoe, and before you know it, the whole room is off, right? So you are communicating that you are not clean. You are communicating that you cannot take care of yourself. There's a communication that comes from that without even saying anything. So I look at you and I just have a notion that, man, this guy is not clean. I would not like to even, if in any case of emergency, I don't like to be caught in his house, right? So basically, yeah. So what are you communicating with the way you take care of your body, right? What are you communicating with the way you dress? What are you communicating with the way you clean your body, right? And I know sometimes some people say things like, they can't afford some things, they can't get this, but the basics, I think there are always alternatives to every challenge, every issue. So it's essential that you find a way to ensure that you are communicating what you want people to perceive. Because if you're not communicating what you want people to perceive about you, in the end, the many opportunities that are lying around you, you would not get. You will not get. The many opportunities are lying around you, you will not get. And that's because people already have perceived something about you, they've perceived something, therefore they are particularly staying away. So these four components are things that you need to look out for when talking or when dealing with your communication, non-verbal communication: your tone of voice, facial expression, body language, grooming, and hygiene. And I'd like to say that tone of voice, facial expression, and body language, all these three things make up what we call attitude and behavior. Right, so that's another non-verbal communication. So I think one time I was speaking to a trainee in the academy, and she was just rolling her eyes, and it's communicating a message of I'm disinterested in what you're saying. I'm not interested in what you're saying. Everything you're saying is not important to me. Just leave me alone and go. But that's how I interpreted that, right? So people will always interpret that and just say, oh, she has a very nasty attitude. So you see that everything has just boiled down to one thing, and I just concluded, oh, she has a nasty attitude, right? So one thing you need to watch out for is the subtle communications that you don't know. And I think one of the things that you need to do is just sit down or check people's comments about you. What have they been saying about how you're communicating? What have they been saying about how you address them? What have they been saying? What feedback have you been giving? That way you're able to identify what is true and what is false, right? So it's essential to keep in mind all these four components of nonverbal communication: tone of voice, facial expression, body language, grooming and hygiene, right? Grooming and hygiene, right? The next one is, yeah, I think this is very, very practical. So let's experience and impression. Experience and impression. So experience and impression basically covers two things, right? Two things. Um, So think about your nonverbal communication and think about one thing. Um, the experience you give people non-verbally determines their impression about it. And I think the word impression, you must have been hearing it over and over and over again. The experience you give people determines the impression they have about you. So if you give people experience and impression, right? Experience and impression. So the experience you give people actually is what determines their impression about you. So for example, let me give you paint a picture. So you go for an interview and you do not dress well. Your colors are not matching. You're wearing your colors are not matching. Your shoes are look very worn out. Also, your hair is not tidy. The only thing that is great is the smile that you have on your face. Like you have a smile on your face, you look confident, but everything about you does not look tidy, right? Um, what that does is when I see you for the first time, it gives me an impression about you, and I'm thinking, this guy is serious at all. And you're smiling in a way that makes me feel like he came for uh, I just feel like, okay, maybe he's trying to make us laugh or something of such, right? So I just have this impression that he doesn't look serious, right? He doesn't look like he came for this same interview that we all planned for, right? So people have experiences about you. So I think I told you about the lady that rolled her eye. That experience gave me an impression about her, and some persons will stay away from people like that because, oh, I don't want someone to disrespect me. I don't want someone to, speak or yes disrespect me. So what happens is if I have any job opportunity for that person, what happens, I will not think towards that side, towards her direction, because, oh, what if she also does the same thing to people that are important and then gives, and it mars my reputation. So the experience that you give determines the impression that people have about you. And your impression is basically take away from every interaction. So for example, after every interaction with you, people take something the same way you take rice from a party. Say they give you party and eat party rice, right? Everybody leaves you with an impression, right? Leaves you with an impression about you. So they might think, oh, this guy is very intelligent, looks very smart, right? Some other person might think, man, this guy does not look it, right? Some people might think, oh, this person is very fun, right? That's the impression they get. So the impression is what they get after interaction, after they experienced you, right? So what you need to do now is ask yourself, from all of the experiences I have given people, what impression have I indirectly, given them, right? So also ask yourself, from all the experiences that people have enjoyed of people, what were the positive impressions and negative impressions I had? So that way, you can now say, okay, I think These are things I need to stop. These are things I need to start. Right. So think about people, think about yourself. So what are the things that you enjoyed? For some of you, you would watch a TV show and say, oh, I like the way this guy is dressed. It makes him look this way, this way, this way. That's the impression you got. So now ask yourself, do you like that impression? Would you like to look like that? And most likely people want to look like that. Therefore, they go into the market, buy the clothes that that person is wearing, want to look like that person. And that happens, they give other people that same kind of impression. Right. So I think in the advent of when people began to what's the word, dye their hair in Nigeria. So the older generation were like, like there's a category of people that dye their hair. There's a category of people that do dreads. And the older generation felt like, man, anybody that does this, they're very unserious. We cannot trust them, that kind of thing. But that is an impression they had from a previous experience in the past. But if you experience the new people now, you might have a different impression, basically. Oh, so we even thought that guy was a bad guy, but he looks like a very well-to-do good guy, good behavior, very nice gentleman, basically, right? What informs people's impression also is previous experience from other people, right? So when somebody now comes and says something negative about you, know that probably they've had a previous experience from other persons as well. However, what's important is understanding that your experience, the experience you give people determines the impression. And for nonverbal communication, it's essential for you to define what experience do I want to give people, and what impression do I want them to leave me with. I think that's a moment to think about it, right? What experience do I want, people to have of me, and what impression do I want them to leave me with, right? Because what you need to do is design your experience, design the experience. Like I think in the advent of user experience and user interface, user experience, basically you are designing the experience that everybody will have. You're designing the experience that everybody will taste of you. So if you want people to think of you as a gentleman, you now have to begin to cut out behaviors like shouting in public places. You need to cut out behaviors that look like you are a rogue. You need to cut out behaviors that make you look loud. You need to cut out behaviors that make you that paints a picture of you as someone that is violent. You need to cut out pictures that images of you that habits that says, oh, this guy is disrespectful, right? So you are designing the experience that you want people to have because you want people to have an impression of you. The same way when you go for an interview and they begin to ask you questions to get to know what kind of person you are. Basically, what they're trying to find out is get impressions about you, right? You need to design that as well. So what do I want people to, think about me every time I interact with them? Think about me. So you think about it in a place of work. When I interact, when I leave my work, when I resign, what impressions do I want people to have about me? Do I want them to think that I'm a snobbish person? Do I'm a wicked person? I'm a selfish person? I'm very greedy? Or do I want them to think that I'm caring, I'm loving, I help people a lot? So I want them to think of me as someone that they can call, even in the future when there's something they need to do. Do I want to be like that helper kind of a person, right? So it's designing. You have to be intentional about the experience you want people to have. You have to be intentional about the impression that you want people to have, because your nonverbal communication actually most times is very, very subconscious. What that means is you don't know that it's happening, but it's happening, right? It's just like you can't see the wind, but you will feel the wind, right? So people will feel the wind, but nobody's seeing the wind. So you might not be aware that there's wind, there's air, it might not be there in your consciousness. What happens is that people are having that experience of the wind, right? So experience and impression. So moving on to the next thing, your personal brand, right? Your personal brand. I think, yeah, your personal brand. So, so we're trying to lean into personal branding from nonverbal communication. I think that's also essential because when we talk about experience and impression, we're talking about your public image, and that's what your personal brand actually talks about. Your public image. What do people see about you? What do people think about you when they see you, right? So your public image, what do you represent, basically, right? So like we said, your experience, the experience you give people determines your impression about them. So for example, well, there was a time, okay, there's not a time, we're still doing it, right? So people on Instagram say believe that, some people on Instagram, they're living fake lives. Everything is for the gram, for the gram, for the gram, So you watch, you read, or you check someone's feed on Instagram, and in the end, you have an impression that Kai, this guy, he has money, guy is rich, man. However, he just gave you that impression by the experiences that you saw on his page, basically, right? But it might not have been true. So he has a public image, a personal brand that says this is what I am, and you always have that impression, and you take in that impression as well. So your personal brand is talking about your image, your public image. What do I stand to represent, right? What impression am I releasing to the world? What experience am I giving the people to see, right? And what impression am I leaving them with, right? So this the latter part of this place is just talking about how do you know to ensure that your personal brand is up, is great, right? So your personal brand, public image. Think about public image. What do people think about me? What am I making people think about me? What am I making people know about me? What am I making people see about me? Right. So your public image. So what's your public image like? Is it that snobbish, wicked, greedy, um, backstabbing person, or is it that caring, loving person that will put his life on the line to help me, sacrifice himself, sacrifice things to be of support? The person that always shows up when I'm there, my support system, that kind of thing. What public image are you releasing? Right? Yep. So the personal brand basically is that. So there's this quote on my screen by Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos says this: your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So this just poses a thought. So asking myself, what do people think about me when I'm not in the room? That's what do people think about me, right? It's a question. What do people think about me when I'm not in the room, right? Do people say bad things about me behind my back, or do people actually say good things behind me, or say good things about me behind my back, right? Or are those things true? I think that's another question to ask. Are those things true? Are they just lies? Right? So when people begin to say bad things about you behind your back, it must have been that those things there's a probability that those things might be true, right? Because remember I talked about this thing that everybody's perception about you is based off can be different, right? And it's based off their experience. So you might have show them a couple of things that might look like something, but it might not be that, right? So some persons are target, or what's it called? They are tagged as being arrogant. However, it's just they are just very confident. They know how to carry themselves. They speak well, and some other persons just don't like them because of that. So you might not tag them as arrogant. However, they are not. Just misinterpretation, right? So what are people saying about you behind your back? Right? What are people saying behind your back? It just defines your public image. It defines your image, right? And there's something we call point of view. So some people might say something different because they've experienced some part of you. Some people might say something different again because they've experienced a different part of you. So there are two different what's it called? There are two different impressions. That's different people that have different impressions about you because of the side of you they've seen, right? Even though I think one of the things that happened one time on social media was someone was saying that you see my other side, right? And we're like, must your other side be a negative side, right? And I'm also of the opinion that you should have only one side, one side. If you have another side, then I can't trust you. Everybody should have one side. You are one person, you should have one side, right? So what are people saying about you behind your back? Don't be someone who has a double identity. Don't be hypocritical. Don't be someone that today he's a very gentle person. At the back, he's trying to work his way to destroy you. Right? So don't be that person. Don't be someone that on the word integer. And if you're a math person, you understand integer. Integer means whole numbers, right? An integer basically means whole, one, single, single. So if you have two sides, you're no more single, right? You're no more single, right? You're having a double identity, right? So if you have integrity, you should be one person before everybody and in every context, one person, right? Yeah. So your brand is what people say about you, and make sure you are one person to everybody one person to everybody so that they are saying one thing about you. One thing about you. Even though there might be a category people, a category of people who would have negative things to say, right? But yeah, there are haters out there. So basically, but make sure you are designing what you want people to say and think about you when you're not in the room. So your brand is made up of your personal brand is made up of two things: how you see yourself, and this is one key thing. How do you see yourself? Right? How do you see yourself? Right? So because how do you see yourself influences what you will look like. For example, if you see yourself as someone that does not know anything, so say that you're not smart, what happens is every expression that comes out of you will actually communicate what you see about yourself, what you think about yourself. So that's why people say think positive thoughts, have affirmations about yourself. If you say you cannot do it, you will not be able to do it, right? Because I think it's Bible that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So your thoughts about yourself shapes your identity. Your thoughts about yourself shapes what you look like. Your thoughts about yourself shapes the actions and the inactions that you would embrace. So you could say, I can't do that thing. What you did was just you put a cap on your abilities. You put a cap on what you can do. However, every human being that is on the earth is let me use word limitless, right? You can do anything you put your heart to do, right? You can do anything. You have the ability. It's inherent in you. You can do whatever you want to do. However, once you say I cannot do it, what you are saying is you are like a Lamborghini that wants to go at the speed of Keke Napep, right? That just think about it like that, right? Your Lamborghini that wants to go at the speed of Keke Napep and you just say, I can't do it, right? You just limited yourself basically, right? So how you see yourself determines your public image because how you see yourself forms how you express yourself or your expressions basically. So you see yourself as weak, you see yourself as poor, you see yourself as unable to achieve any good thing, you see yourself as disadvantaged, right? All of those things affect what you express. So you will not push for the big things that will make you look good. You will not push for ensuring that people see your achievements, your accomplishments. So some people are very shy. Well, I don't want people to know. It's not compulsory everybody knows now. So you not talk about the great things that you've done. You'll be what's that word? I can't remember. But you not want to talk about the things that you've done. You want to be very conservative and all that. So how you see yourself basically shapes your personal brand, your public image, because you are going to push what you think about yourself. So if you think that you can't make it in life, what happens is that you would push that ideology and it will affect your entire being. So as a man thinks in his heart, they see you based on what you've pushed. So basically, whatever you show them is what they will see. And sometimes whatever you show them might not be how they will interpret what they see. So they might say other things about you, say stuff that might not be entirely true, right? So how others see also influences your personal brand because that's what they're going to be talking about, right? So they're going to say, oh, that guy is a very fun and loving guy. You can hang out with him. Guy get wild and doesn't have any problem. He's good to be with. He gets very helpful, right? That's the image how they see, and it influences your public image, right? So these two things, how other people see you and how you see yourself, influences and makes up what we call your personal brand, or your public image. So what happens is if you don't see yourself well, you will not push the right image to the people. And what happens is when people experience you, they have a wrong image about you, a bad image about you, and all of these things begin to shape what we call your personal brand, your public image. So it's essential to first of all start thinking right? Start thinking about yourself in the most positive way. Thinking about yourself, telling yourself the things that are true, right? Don't think about yourself in light of your what's it called? In light of your limitations, in light of the things that you cannot do or things that you're not able to do in the moment. What you need to know is that the things you cannot do in the moment are based on knowledge, but it's on a knowledge gap. You don't know something, that's why you're unable to do something. What you need to do to be able to do Okay, that sounds okay. What you need to know to be able to do is what you go and find. So you want to do something, you need to find the knowledge that would help you to do it, right? So um, you don't have money, you're broke, life is hard. Life is hard on everybody. The people that stand out are the people that find out how to navigate through life, because there are people who have lived this life before you and they found out that this is the way. What you need to do is go and find out those people and follow the way that they have found, right? Yeah. So how you see yourself is essential. You need to begin to see yourself in truth. Who am I? What can I do? What are my capacities? Right? Begin to see yourself, begin to analyze yourself, become self-aware. And also in becoming self-aware, ask yourself, is there, and I'm going to say this to everybody now, there's nothing that can limit you. Find out, just know this, nothing can limit you basically. Nothing can limit you. How you see yourself is very, very important because it influences everything. Like I said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he, right? So you are what you think about yourself. You become what you think about yourself, right? So if you think positive thoughts about yourself, if you tell yourself the right things and you believe those things you're telling yourself, you would practically push, right? Everybody moves in the line of their belief, in line of their faith, what they have believed, right? So if you believe a lie about yourself, it will affect the image you express. How other people see you as well, right? All that people see you is based on the impressions you give them, the experience they have of you, right? So the experience they have of you is what they will go and tell other people about, right? So what becomes your public image, your personal brand is what they've experienced about you. So just think about a popular brand I have. So some people, for example, in Nigeria, the car that is everywhere in Nigeria is Toyota, right? Because Toyota is everywhere because people have experienced it and they tell other people about it. So imagine the shop that you bought something from that you told your friend about. The reason why I told your friend was because of how you saw that brand or that shop, that organization, right? You told other people about it because you had an experience, right? And even if you had a good experience or a bad experience, you still tell other people, and that informs the image of that shop, that organization, or that store. So what's essential is to ensure that the image you are showing based on how you see yourself is good, so that people can actually talk about you in a positive light. So your personal brand is made up on how you see yourself and how other people see you. Now, the last thing for today is talking about how do I design my experience, right? How do I design? Remember, I'm coming from nonverbal communication. How do I design my nonverbal communication to everybody in such a way that I am communicating what I want them to believe? I'm communicating what is positive, right? So that, because if you have bad attitudes, if you have a bad behavior, nobody is going to consider you for a job or a partnership, or nobody wants to give you their life, because most people's businesses, that's their life. They've labored to bring it to a point that they can hire people, right? So that labor is not, for lack of a better word, that labor is not beans. It's not easy. It took a lot of pain, a lot of pressure, a lot of money, a lot of heartbreaks. So they will not want to give it to you who cannot actually manage himself, right? So the experience, your attitude, your behavior, your non-verbal communication, your tone of voice, everything is essential for you to even get an opportunity anywhere. Right? I would not hire somebody today that does not look right, does not speak right, does not sound right. I don't want you to look like, because everybody represents an organization. For example, if I do something wrong to you, you say these wave people, Sha, right? So everybody's representing an organization and they don't want you to represent their organization in a bad light. So they would not want to, give you an opportunity because you don't look the part, right? So you have one job: design the experience that you want people to have of you at every interaction. And that's what this session is about, right? Design your experience. And basically, it's just thinking about the following questions and asking yourself, what are the things I want to do, right? I'm going to put them to practice. I think put them to practice. So design your experience. That's what we've been saying from the beginning. Design what nonverbal communication you want to express, right? And that would actually inform changing your behavior, changing your attitude, catching yourself at every interaction when you are doing something wrong. So I remember um, before I used to stutter, I used to stammer when I speak. So I began to ensure deliberately that I speak slowly. One, because I don't want people to think something else, right? Some people might think, oh, there's this stammerer, or this guy is shy, this guy is timid, oh, this guy might be lying. that kind of a thing. So people have different thoughts, right? I don't want them to think all of those things. So I want to ensure that the things I say and the things I express are the things I want them to see, right? So I began to ensure deliberately change that behavior. Change that behavior. You can always change every behavior. This you can't just say this is me. This is me. Take it or leave it, right? Every behavior is learned. You learned every behavior that you are expressing. Either learned it during your upbringing, you learned it by association with people, or you learned it subconsciously as well. Everything is subconscious actually. You learned it while you're growing up with your parents, your family. You learned it maybe with friends, or you learned it from somewhere, from a TV show you watched over and over and over again, right? Until you began to, before you know it, you're walking like that person, you're thinking like that person, you're talking like that person, right? So you can unlearn those things because you learned them, right? You can unlearn them. So it's not, that's not who you are. If you have a negative behavior, negative attitude, that's not who you are. It's just something that can change. Your identity is not tied to your behavior. Your identity is you without your behavior. Your behavior is just what you are meant to express from your identity. Okay, that's too much talk. But my point is basically your behavior can change, and you need to begin to take those steps to ensure that you change those behaviors that might not be good. And now begin to take the steps to build those behaviors that are good, right? Behaviors that are good. So smile more, right? Some people, their face is very hard, very rigid, right? Like they'll just beat the living daylight out of you, right? And those things are based on experiences that you might have had in the past. You might have not had a reason to smile a lot. You might have had not work with people that you can trust, right? Those things just shape your reality, right? However, practice smiling. Just practice smiling. Smile is very contagious. Practice smiling as often as possible, right? It would make you more open for people to interact with, basically. So practice those behaviors that you believe are essential, right, for your interaction. So practice practice how to work, how to walk, how to talk, how to stand properly. Some people stand and before you know it, it's just like they're not standing straight, just bent, right? So practice how to stand, right? Because when people see the way you stand, they'll look at you and wonder how, right? So it's essential that you um look the part, basically, and I think that's important. So design your experience. So there are a couple of questions you need to ask yourself. What impression do you want to leave people with? What impression do I think I should have even made it more personal? What impression do I want to leave people with? It's good to think about what impression. So if I were you now, just write down this question and 10 bullet points. What are the impressions that I want people to leave people with? So it could be, I want people to think of me as a generous person. I want people to think of me as a kind person. I want people to think of me as someone who they can come to when they're in need. I want people to think of me as someone they can trust. I want people to think of me as someone that is competent, right? I want people think of me as someone that is hardworking, right? So these are the impressions you want to leave people with, right? Write them down, right? The next question you need to ask yourself is, what experiences do I need to create for them to have those impressions? So what are the experiences that they need to have? So it might be a thing of, oh, I am not. So let's consider how people think that I'm kind. So I use kind words when I speak to people. I'm respectful. So I greet people. I care about them. I ask them how are they doing. I'm not just using people because, and now you have to be genuine, right? Don't do these things because you want to be fake, right? It has to be your life, right? So call people up to check on them, you're trying to give the impression that you're kind. Call people up to check up on them, ask them how they're doing, have they eaten. Don't be I think some people at work, they're more or less about the work. So have you done the work? Good. Have you done it? Good. Bye. The next time they'll call you is, hey, have you gotten the email? Right? Have you gotten this? Have you gotten that? Right? So they are more or less work. They don't care about the person. Right? So the experience you need to create will determine their impression about you. So what experiences do I need to create? If I want to be kind, I'll call you, check on you, how are you doing today? And I'll end the call there without asking about work. If they ask if you need anything, consistent calls, consistent check-ins, consistent even have to give you something, right? What's the word? Also be there for you emotionally. Maybe you're going through a lot and just be there for you emotionally. So what are the experiences I need to create to give people that impression? That's another question. So you could just draw a table, right? This is the impression, beside the impression, the experience, right? The next one will now be what do I need to create those experiences? Now, remember, I said that anything you think you cannot do is because you don't know something. So, what do I need? Some of you, what you need might be to read a book, to learn something, right? To read a book, learn about how to manage time. Because some of people, the impression you give people is that, oh, you are very late, do not manage time. And the experiences that you need to do is to come early to work, submit your projects on time, submit your assignments on time, submit tasks on time, leave work early. That's another proof that you're great at managing time, right? So ask yourself, what do I need to do? What do I need to create those experiences? It could be a thing of, oh, I need to study this, I need to read this, I need to buy this, I need to do this, I need to hang out with this person more, I need to ask this person questions, I need to be mentored by this person. All right. So what do I need to create those experiences? Right. What do I need? And I think this also covers how do I create those experiences, basically. Right. So these are three questions that I would like you to ask, think about, and begin to make conscious efforts to adjust. Right. To make conscious effort to adjust your interaction. Make conscious effort to adjust how you interact with people, how you what's the word? Which conscious effort to affect or to influence your non-verbal communication, to influence your personal brand, the public image that people have about you. Because remember I said first impressions often last longer. And if you've been looking for a job, remember we said that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So after the interview, what they say about you is representative of your personal brand, your public image. And that was influenced by not only what you said during the interview, but also the things that you displayed in terms of your nonverbal communication. So if you're someone that you're looking for a customer service job and throughout the interview you did not even show them your teeth, you didn't even smile, right? Your words were you were not very tender and soft in your speech. It seemed like you were rushing, your voice was very hard, right? Right? So the experience they had just give them an impression, hey, this one cannot do customers, just chase our customers away, right? So basically, what impression did you leave them with? And I think this is very deliberate. This is very good for us to intentionally define the experiences that we intend to create. This is the end of my slide. Thank you very much. So if you have any question, I would like to take questions briefly. Questions briefly. Anybody with questions, I would like to ask questions about nonverbal communication, about your personal brand, your public image, challenges that you might be facing. Yep, any question? Anybody with questions? Okay, I see that we have some persons here. Any questions? Okay, I guess I'll assume that there are no questions. Okay. Right. Okay,
Okay, we
Lamide,
have questions. Yes. Olamide.
Lamide, you could come off mute and ask.
Can I continue?
Yes, you can. Please continue.
Yes, I'm trying to be good in public speaking. And recently I've been trying to read some books, but I discovered that it's not really helping compared to the experience I've been facing. And I don't really know how to go about it.
Okay. So what's your ask? What do you want me to do now?
Like, is there any other better things that I can do apart from reading books? Like, is there another advice you can give me to improve my public speaking skills that I want to learn?
Okay. Two advices. One, go to, find public speaking opportunities and begin to practice. Right. I find out that sometimes reading a book can be overbearing. Right. It's not wrong to have the knowledge. It's not bad to have the knowledge, but what happens is when you're not practicing chapter by chapter, you might not get what you want. Right. So what you need to do is begin to find public speaking opportunities. It might be in church, It might be presentation to the whole class or to everybody at work. If you're in school, so you could just do that as well. Once in a while, give a presentation, right? Talk. Be the one to always want to talk to people in front of the class. Also, and I think another thing to start is even if you start with having peer-to-peer conversations, right? So you could have your group of friends lead conversations, right? Be the one to lead the conversation and talk to them, right? Yeah. So I think practice just helps you to it's like, how do I put it? It just adjusts you. It helps you to adjust, right? Just imagine me putting you moving from the north coming to Lagos, right? If I told you about Lagos in the north and told you to live your life like you're in Lagos, you will struggle because the context is not right. But if I put you in the middle of Lagos, Lagos will adjust you, right? The same way, put yourself in the context that ensures you are speaking publicly. That way it will just adjust you naturally. You would adjust to it. Also, I think one other thing that people need to think about is when you're public speaking, when you're actually speaking to the people, is also focus on what you say. I think non-verbal communication is also key. Focus on what you say. Make sure you have a message. Don't just open your mouth and talk something, right? Make sure you have a message. And there are many resources for public speaking. You can go on YouTube, find many resources, and you find out that what they will be talking about is your message, how to present yourself, how to present what you are talking about. You find them talking about also how to engage the audience in your communication, right? I can't talk about everything right now, but one thing you need to do is you could just find resources. I think if the book is not helping, you could just find resources on YouTube, right? And just watch people's videos, watch people's examples, watch people's tips and tricks, and just head on from there. Please confirm I answered your question very well.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So I think someone who's plans, I don't know who plans is. I think I saw his hand up as well. Okay, I think he maybe doesn't have a question anymore, right? Okay,
I was
thank
the
you
one that
so.
asked the question.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought it was Olamide that was speaking. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Yes, I guess we've come to the end of today's session. Thank you very much. Um, one thing I'll just leave you with is to ensure that you design the experience that you want people to have. Ensure that you are intentional about bringing people to know the person that you want them to know, right? Ensure that you're intentional about bringing people to experience and to know the person that you want them to know, right?
Good morning. Can you hear me, sir?
Hi, Lamde. Good morning. I can hear you. Yeah,
Yeah,
about
sorry.
welcome back.
Yeah. The question is, I want to ask, how do we go about personal rebranding? Like, how do we go about personal rebranding?
Personal rebranding.
Yeah.
Okay. I think everything I've said actually covers rebranding. Because when you say rebranding, I'm thinking you have a public image before. You want to change that public image, right? You could go as do the same thing as rebranding, right? Consistent with it, what happens is over time people would believe and say, oh, this guy has changed, or this guy is no more that kind of a person, now this kind of a person, right? So everything we talked about today actually covers what you call rebranding. It's just that what happens is you are now deliberate about saying, oh, I want these people to see this, I want these people to have this, and people to think about me in this direction, right? In no more this direction. So I'm going to stop doing all of these things that make them think this about me, and I'm going to pick up new habits, new behaviors, new take up new actions that ensures that they think about me in this direction. in the new brand image of new public image that you intend to what's it called, present to people. So everything we talked about actually covers it. So basically focus on what you want people to think, be deliberate about how the experiences be deliberate about the experiences you give them, and that would ensure that they have the right impression and it will actually influence your public image.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, guess that will be all. So Sylvia, would you like to address everybody?
Okay, thank you, Vanya, for facilitating this workshop. Thank you. Oh, I also have a question actually.
Okay.
Okay, so you talked about the 4 non-verbal communication. That's tone of voice, facial expression, and 2 others. So what do you think is the most powerful non-verbal communication means?
The most powerful.
Yeah.
So when you think of it, I can't say that one is particularly most powerful. Think about jollof rice. Which one is the most powerful ingredient in jollof rice? Right, so everything works to make up the jollof rice, right? So everything actually makes up the non-verbal communication, because what happens is what you find out is some of them support one another, right? So if my tone of voice is very snobbish, what happens is my facial expression goes in that direction, right? So my facial expression goes that direction, and what happens is my body will also respond in that direction. So it is a whole lump. All of them just come together to shape what I'll call my non-verbal communication, right? So I could just give you a very nasty look, and then I'll just eye you, then I'll just ease and maybe whip my hair at you and walk away, basically, right? All of that was conjoined or came together. That's like the jollof rice of everything, right? So we cannot really say that one thing is greater than the other. However, everything works together and just makes up that powerful punch, or that powerful punch, basically.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
All right, thank you,
really
everybody.
appreciate you participating in class. And I guess that's it. So I don't know if
Thank you very much.
our alumni also would like to appreciate that plans and Olamide. Okay. So I guess we've come to the end of the session. Okay. So Olamide is saying thanks for the class. So please don't forget to write your number and your network provider name to be credited after this session.